Proforma is a leading provider of promotional products, printing business documents, and e-solutions. Proforma has received numerous awards and is recognized as one of the 5 largest distributors of promotional products. Proforma serves over 30,000 clients through more than 600 member offices in North America.
Greg and Vera Muzzillo, co-CEOs of Proforma, were selected as visionaries by Smart Business as part of their 2007 Innovation in Business Conference. The title of Visionary honors business leaders have demonstrated a history of innovative ideas throughout their careers and have developed processes that are on the cutting edge.
We are honored to be named Visionaries by Smart Business, begins Greg Muzzillo, founder and co-CEO of Proforma. Vera and I love Proforma, and we believe in the dreams of our franchise owners. Our innovative business model and the unique structure of our support system that we have designed for our owners empowers them to achieve their goals and dreams while making an impact in both the printing and promotional product industry.
And in addition to being named a visionary by Smart Business, the Muzzillos were recognized as 2 of the most influential people in the promotional products industry by the Advertising Specialty Institute. Counselor Magazine's Power 50, Vera Muzzillo was named one of the top 10 women in business owners in Northeast Ohio by the National Association of Women Business Owners of Cleveland. So now we'd like to show you a short video. So pay attention to the screen. Thank you.
Muzzillo.
Thank you. Well, good morning. Thank you for being here. Dean Sam, ladies, thanks for that nice introduction. Students, faculty, it's an honor to be here with you today. And what we'd like to talk to you about is you. We're going to tell you our story. We're going to tell you a few other stories. But the key of what we'd like to share with you is for you to have a big dream. How many of you, just so that I could understand, may want to, when you get out of here and graduate, accomplish something big, something huge, maybe even something that could change your industry or change the world? How many don't? just neat. Okay, so I'm an undergraduate student here at Notre Dame. I'm undergraduate. I'm a graduate student. I'm from Boston College, and I can't bear to see Notre Dame beat us next weekend. Huh? All right. Well, thanks a lot for being here. Let's see. I think when I graduate from college, I'm going to go work for a company for 30 years and get a gold watch when I retire. That's probably going to be my life. Okay. I think when I graduate from college, I want to go work for somebody else. I think when I graduate from college, when I get out of University of Notre Dame, I want to own my own business. I didn't raise my hand yet. Okay, who didn't raise their hand yet? Anybody? Good. What we like to talk about is how to accomplish something big, how to make a big dream come true. I'm going to do a lot of the talking initially. In our home, just so you know, Vera's the boss. And Vera does 90% of the talking. And Vera is always right, no matter how wrong I think she is. In our business, I'm a little bit more sales and marketing. She's a little bit more finance and accounting. Vera's going to come back in a few moments, though, and share with us some of the insights about what we've learned. What does it take to accomplish something big, something huge in your life? Because I think, after having been out of college for 30 years, I am convinced that preparation and perspiration, in other words, hard work by itself, is nothing. The world that I know, the world I've worked in for 30 years, is filled with bright, capable, competent students who studied hard in high school, valedictorian, salutatorian, auditorium, I don't know. And they went on to college and they did amazing things. They went into schools I couldn't have got into on a bad bet. And they graduated from those schools with amazing honors, amazing accomplishments, and an amazing resume. And yet, And yet, they went on to do amazingly average things. Amazingly average. And so what is the difference between those that move on to do amazingly average things and those who move on to be amazingly successful and truly, in fact, change the world? And I believe preparation is very important. You're doing a great job of it. I believe perspiration, hard work, is very important. But I think the thing that separates the wildly successful from the amazingly average is inspiration. Sometimes when I talk about the minutes of your life and the moments in your life. The minutes of your life are those hundreds of minutes every day, every week, every month, throughout the years that you work hard to prepare. That you work hard to get the grades, to get the graduation, to get the job. Those are the minutes in your life. The moments in your life are those 15 seconds each of you may have. And the stories I'm about to tell you are about people who did have them that radically transformed them forever and took them into careers they never thought they would go into, took them onto paths they never thought they would be on. And by the way, it's okay. It's okay to want to do amazingly great things and even make an amazing amount of money. How many of you would say, I want to make a whole lot of money? It's good. It's okay. We're a Catholic Christian college here. So we believe in the Bible. And in the Bible, we're told as Christians, we're given a wonderful gift. We're given wonderful gifts, the fruits of the Spirit. And one of those gifts that we're given, some of us, is the gift of giving. And I believe you can't get the gift of giving without the gift of getting. And so I think God has a plan for each of you and all of you, and for some of you it might actually be getting a whole lot so you can give a whole lot back. Preparation, perspiration, inspiration. Let me tell you about a story about a fellow that was very well prepared for a day in his life that would change his world and your world forever. As a young man in the 1920s and in the 1930s, he was a Dixie cup salesman. You know, those paper cups, Dixie cups, they're still in business today. And back then, for those of you that aren't aware, there weren't chains of restaurants the way there are today. They were starting to emerge slowly, some chains. A&W was an early chain that started to emerge at the time. Slightly later, KFC. And this man spent more than a decade selling Dixie cups to restaurants. Big restaurants, small restaurants, chains of restaurants, newly franchising a new concept in our emerging economy. And then he went on to sell what's called multi-mix machines. This is a machine that has 5 spindles on it. You don't see them anymore today because they've come up with a better way of making a shake. But back in the day, in fact, when I worked at McDonald's, I had a job at McDonald's for a while, we actually used this machine, and you slip a cup up in each one of those little blenders, and each one of these machines can make 5 milkshakes at a time. And he sold milkshake machines to restaurants. And one day he received an order from a restaurant in Southern California for 8 of these machines. 8 machines that each make 5 milkshakes at a time. And he thought to himself, he had never even received more than 2 ever from a restaurant. And now here's a restaurant that needed 8 Mixmaster machines. He said to himself, I've got to go see what kind of a little restaurant, what kind of a little hamburger stand needs 8 multi-Mixmaster machines. And so one day he drove from his home in Illinois to Southern California. And he pulled into the parking lot at about 10:30 of this little hamburger stand that needed 8 multi-Mixmaster machines. And he was prepared. His hard work as a Dixie Cup salesman, his hard work as a multi-Mixmaster machine salesman, prepared him in his eyes and his mind to see something that none of those other people that day would see. That day was an amazing day for him. At about 11:30, children and parents started lining up in the window long lines of children, long lines of parents ordering untold numbers of hamburgers, French fries, and milkshakes. And at about 2:30, the action slowed down. But Ray Kroc was prepared. Ray Kroc, maybe a name none of you know, maybe some of you know, went into the hamburger stand and asked to see the owners. The owners were the McDonald's brothers. Even the McDonald's brothers didn't know what they had. Even they didn't know what they had. And so over a very short period of time, Ray Kroc understood what they had. Ray Kroc understood what was coming on in the world of franchising, what was coming on in the world of interstates and freeways being developed, and what people were looking for in convenience and fast foods. And Ray Kroc agreed to give each of those brothers $1 million. And he bought the rights to expand McDonald's throughout the world. Went back to Des Plaines, Illinois, and he built, not the McDonald's brothers, he built the McDonald's Corporation that we knew today. It was his preparation, surely, and his perspiration over the years that prepared him. But it was that moment in time, those 3 hours in the parking lot at the McDonald's, that changed his life forever. And it was the inspiration. It was the inspiration that caused him to become, and caused McDonald's to become, the organization each of you and all of us know today. Preparation, perspiration, and inspiration. I'll try to tell you my story now. I went to a smaller college. I went to Baldwin Wallace College. It's a college outside of Cleveland, Ohio, where I grew up. I went to Cleveland St. Ignatius High School. Actually, a lot of kids from Cleveland St. Ignatius, I think, end up going to Notre Dame. I think 8 to 12 kids a year. Always more kids than from St. Ed's. That's all I know. They're our arch rival in Cleveland. And I was one of those students that probably didn't pay a whole lot of attention, as I should have. And when it came time to apply to college, I thought that ND stood for no dummies, and so I didn't apply here. I wouldn't have gotten in anyhow. And I went to this little old college called Baldwin Wallace. It's kind of a long story how I ended up studying accounting, but I ended up studying accounting, and I did very well at it. In fact, in my junior year, I was named by Ernst & Ernst, now Ernst & Young, or whatever they become, as their Scholar of the Year, and I was given a scholarship as the Ernst & Ernst Accounting Scholar. And in my junior year, I had an internship at Continental Can Corrugated Division Plant in their accounting department. And two things became pretty apparent to me during my junior year in that internship. First of all, it became very apparent to me that I don't think I was cut out to be an accountant. And that's a frightening thought, because when you're in your junior year, heading towards your senior year, and you studied accounting, and that's your major, and there ain't no going back, and you start thinking, wait a minute, I don't know if I want to be an accountant. Because what happened was, well, in accounting, at least in Baldwin Wallace, you wake up, when you study accounting, and you wake up and you have breakfast with your fraternity brothers, those that got up anyhow, and then you mosey on to class at maybe 10. You go to class for an hour, and then, you go to lunch, and you have lunch with your fraternity brothers, and then you have lunch, and then you watch the gong show in the lounge, and then, you go to another class, and then you come back and play a little wall ball, and then you go to another class, and come home to the homework. That was studying accounting. Doing accounting was show up at 8 o'clock in the morning, sit down, shut up, and you'll be done at 5. And I don't know if you got a sense of my personality yet, but I can't sit down and shut up for 8 hours. And nobody told me. There was no accounting class that said, by the way, in your career, you sit down, shut up for 8 hours. So a little bit of inspiration was starting to happen. But far more importantly, during my last week at this corrugated plant, they gave me an opportunity to visit with each of the functional departments. We were just a little outlying manufacturing plant. And so I had an opportunity to visit in the manufacturing plant itself and find out what a fluter was and find out how they put starch in cardboard. That was pretty cool. The designers. But my favorite day was the day I got to sit down with the two customer service guys, the two customer service men, who seemed to be the heartbeat of the plant. They were fun, they were funny, they were lively. And I couldn't wait to spend a day with Dick and George. And I, in that day, sat down with them, and it became very apparent Dick and George hated their jobs. They hated their boss. They hated Continental Can, and I even think they hated cardboard. I think it had gotten that severe and warped that they even hated cardboard. And I'm 22 years old. I don't get it. I say to them, George and Dick, it's clear to me you hate this place and you hate your life. Why don't you leave? Right? All of you would say the same thing. And they said to me, I'll never forget it. These words are etched in my mind forever. George was sitting at his desk and he turned and he looked at me and he says, you don't get it, do you, Greg? As he turned and he pointed to his credenza. And he said to me these exact words, Greg, we're not going anywhere. We have children, we have house payments, we have school payments, we have orthodontist payments. We're not going anywhere. Oh my, I was 22 years old. Can any of you relate to somebody saying, I ain't going anywhere? That sounded to me like a man going to San Quentin. That just sounded like a prison sentence. And I thought to myself at that moment in time, I need to figure out how to own my own business and get it started before I get stuck like George and Dick. That moment in time changed my life forever. I think I always wanted to own my own business. I mean, in the back of my head, sort of like you, I sure would rather work for myself than work for somebody else. So when I graduated from college, anyhow, I stayed on the path I was on because it was too late to switch tracks. And I went to work for Haskins & Sells, which became Deloitte, and Haskins & Sells, which became Deloitte & Touche, as an auditor. But my worst fears were already confirmed that accounting wasn't for me. And in fact, public accounting was even worse because during the busy season, you show up at 7 o'clock in the morning and start your audit. And maybe you finish at 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock at night, and you wake up tomorrow and you do it all over again. Sit down, shut up. Now, later on, I'm sure I could have been an okay partner, but 12 years of kissing somebody's rear end for a 3% chance of making partner didn't seem like a great bet to a 23-year-old guy. My roommate, when I graduated from college, I had a roommate. We shared an apartment. And I had my job by Christmas. The accounting firms come on campus and they try to get it out of the way quicker. But my roommate was just a great guy, fraternity brother. We had a lot of fun. But I never thought very much of him intellectually. And he was the kind of guy that he finally got a job. I think it was maybe May. I didn't pay much attention. He got a job with a little small print distributorship in town. I think they had 10 employees. Now, in the back of my mind, I got two things going on. Number one, I want to be able to start my own business before I get married or have children. So when I can eat Campbell's soup for a year and not bring anybody else into the process, I want to start my own business. And he's working for this printing company. And here's how my life worked anyhow. On Friday nights, he and I, Craig and I, would go out to bars looking for girls to take out on Saturday night. And inevitably on our Friday night's excursions, we would talk about our careers. And I didn't have much respect for his career in the beginning, but over time, he started to tell me a little bit more. You see, when I was in school, I always thought there was just manufacturers and customers, right? I always thought because you know how you study accounting and there's sales and cost of goods sold and manufacturing and overhead and cost accounting. And in my mind, it was all jumbled up. Okay, there's manufacturers and customers. But actually, there's a different model. And the more I talked to Craig, the more I started to understand, no, some manufacturers do manufacturing and they sell through distributors. And Craig was slowly telling me over time, I got an order for $20,000 today or this week. And there was $7,000 in profit in that order. And then he'd tell me about another $40,000 order with $20,000 in profit. And slowly over time, I started listening and I started thinking, wait a minute. You work for a company that doesn't own any printing equipment. In fact, I think they may have had a copier. You work for a company that has no investment in printing equipment, no real investment in truly any capital investment at all. And all you do is go out and sell this stuff, and you're making 30 to 50% gross margin on the sales. Sounds like a pretty good racket to me. And so it didn't take me very long to say, hey, Craig, I think we could do this ourselves. I graduated from college in 1977. In 1978, he put in $100, I put in $100, and we started this company called Proforma. Now, if you want to start your own business, and many of you raise your hands, there's kind of like two extremes to how you can start your own business. One of the ways is, I think Herb Kelleher was here several weeks back, and I would think it takes a whole lot more money to start an airlines, right? And so I think his story is he had a whole bunch of partners and everybody put in a whole lot of money. And you know the story about Googles and the Amazons. One of the extremes is you can go out and raise a whole bunch of money and slice up the pie and have a little piece of the pie but a whole lot of money and try to grow something big. That's one extreme. Now, in between that extreme is a whole bunch of other options to the extreme that I took, which is called bootstrapping. I didn't know any better. I didn't even know what venture capital was. All I knew was I just wanted to own my own business, and I didn't have any money, but here was a business we could start with no money. And so the other extreme is we put in $100 each. We bought some stationery, an answering machine, and a used file cabinet. And we started knocking on doors. We started working really hard. We did more stupid things than we did right things, but we did enough right things between 1978 and 1982 that Inc. magazine named us one of the Inc. 500 fastest growing companies in North America. Now, I'll tell you the secret to being named an Inc. 500 company. Have a terrible first year. That's the secret. If you have a terrible first year and you grow like we did, by 1982, our rate of growth looked astounding. But our rate of growth looked astounding because we had a terrible first year. By 1982, 1983, and 1984, this little company was named 3 years in a row to Inc. magazine's list of the 500 fastest growing companies. Somewhere along the way, one of our customers, a defense supplier that makes torpedoes, Mark 48 torpedoes for the government, liked us enough to nominate us for some award, and we eventually were named by President Ronald Reagan as the Small Business of the Year in 1985. I have no clue what we did. But I know that Gould Ocean Systems Division has enough lobbyists and whatever else, and they wanted the recognition. We won this award. So by 1985, we're Inc. 500 3 years in a row. We're named by President Ronald Reagan as the Small Business of the Year. And there was an article in Inc. magazine about these two dummies that graduated from college. And our business is a very simple business. We buy something from somebody, we sell it to somebody else, and we mark it up. And the only other thing that has to happen is they need to pay their bills. If they pay their bills, we get to pay the manufacturers, and everybody's happy. But sometimes, if people don't pay their bills, that's the only thing that that's the only thing that I think could have gotten us, an undercapitalized company, in trouble. And so I had a buddy in college. His name was Elio DiPaolo. And his dad actually was a wrestler. And his stage name was Elio. So I thought, as an idea for collecting money, it'd be a good idea to call people up and say, hello, my name is Elio DiPaolo. My buddy, Vera Muzzillo, he's telling me you don't pay your bill. It worked, okay? Write it down. It worked. And Inc. magazine wrote a story about us. These two little idiots that graduated from college, put in $200, and now have this Inc. 500 fastest growing company. So there's an article about us in Inc. magazine. And people started thinking, well, if two idiots can graduate from college and do this, maybe we could do it. So we started getting some inquiries about franchising. But far more important to me was the fact that as I looked around the industry, I saw a very inefficient industry. Businesses buy $200 billion a year of printing and promotional products. I'll say that number again. $200 billion a year. And our industry is overwhelmingly comprised of small, maybe million, maybe 2 million, maybe only a couple $100,000 distributors. And it seemed to me we were very inefficient. I remember in 1985, I spent more time figuring out what software we should buy for this stupid little distributorship than I did selling. And I thought, that's not the right way to do business. What if there was a way we could get all of us little distributors together and have some great marketing? Because none of us had great marketing. I mean, we went out and sold marketing, but we didn't have time or money to have our own. So what if we could have some great marketing and great sales programs? What if we could find a way to have great clout with our suppliers? See, our suppliers make all of our cost of goods sold. And they're the big people in the food chain, and we're the little people in the food chain. And I don't know what you studied in economics or anything, but you remember the smallest participant in the channel absorbs the margin squeeze. You remember studying that? Well, anyhow, I thought, I don't want to be the littlest guy in the channel because I don't want to absorb the margin squeeze. I want to be big. And I want to find a way to get all of us distributors together and be big. And then I thought if there could just be a way we could all share some back office. Because all of us, tens of thousands of distributors, hundreds of distributors in my own backyard, all of us, even friendly competitors, had our own set of overhead. Receptionists, computer systems, accounting departments, accounts receivable, accounts payable. Might only be one or two people. But it was duplicated overhead across tens of thousands of distributors. Seemed highly inefficient to me. Seemed to be there be a better way. But for me, the tipping inspiration of what we needed to do was when we decided to expand outside of Cleveland, Ohio. All of our business was in Cleveland, Ohio. And we decided we wanted to expand to Columbus. And long story short, we went to Columbus, which is maybe a 2-hour drive from Cleveland, and we interviewed a bunch of candidates. We eventually found a small handful that we wanted a second interview, and we eventually found a great candidate that was our person to expand us into Columbus, Ohio. We're going to be a multi-location company, and we go down there for our interview with this guy, and he says to us in our interview where we're going to hire him, sign him, and start expanding, hey guys, you know what? I really like you. And I really like your story. And I like your story so much, he said, I want to start my own distributorship just like you. That was pretty disappointing. But at the same time, it was pretty inspirational. Because what I came to understand is a lot of people maybe my age and younger want to own their own business just like me. And we needed to come up with a way that we could all have our own business, that we could all share some marketing, all share some purchasing clout, and have some back office support system. And believe it or not, we came up with this idea of franchising. I don't know how much you've studied franchising here, but it is a really great distribution model. I think some people think of McDonald's, when they think of Subway, when they think of franchising, but I think it's so much more than that. You can't buy a car without going to a franchise. You can't watch a hockey game, a baseball game, a basketball game, or a football game without watching a franchise play that game. You can't stay in a hotel without staying in a franchise. You can't buy pizza without buying a pizza from a franchise company. These are all franchise companies. You can't hardly buy a house or real estate without going through a franchising company. These are all franchises. You can't hardly buy food, fast food especially, without going to a franchise. All of these companies are franchises. Think about health, vision, weight loss, vitamins, Gold's Gym. They're all a franchise. Many companies today are franchises. In fact, 1 million businesses in North America today are a franchise, employing about 20 million people. And in fact, 1/3 of our retail sales goes through a franchise. 1/3 of all retail sales goes through a franchise. So we thought this could be a pretty cool thing for us. But people in our industry didn't understand. People in our industry thought franchising was for hamburgers or oil changes, but it wasn't for them. It's harder to find good models in the world of business to business. And so we thought if people in our own industry, because there's many types of franchising, but in general, I'll just tell you about two. One is traditional. A traditional franchise is somebody who's not happy in their job, and they say, I've had enough working for the man, I'm going to go own my own business, and they read the Wall Street Journal, USA Today, or they maybe do research on the internet, and they find a franchise, they buy a franchise, they didn't know anything about the business, and they get started in that business. The other type of a franchise is called conversion franchising. Conversion franchising is where people in an industry say, I want to convert my operating system to that operating system for the efficiencies I could get. Like Century 21. Century 21 was completely built only on the backs of people that had their own little real estate offices and wanted to affiliate with Century 21 for the advantages that they could have. But in our industry, it was hard for us to sell people in the industry. And so what do you do if you can't sell people in the industry, but you're convinced franchising is the right model? You go to sell people outside of the industry. And to sell people outside of the industry, we had to do some pretty horrible things. We had to work really hard. And this is in 1986, 1987. No matter what Al Gore said, the internet wasn't invented yet. And so for people to do research, to want to own their own business, they had to go to these things called business opportunity fairs. So to sell our first franchises, we went to these business opportunity fairs. And we stood next to mink farms, ostrich farms, Bic lighter distributors with little machines, some other franchises. But our worst nightmare in that first couple years when we sold our first 50 franchises at these shows, about one per show, our worst nightmare was the time we stood next to a bubble gum vending machine operator. His job was to sell bubble gum machines to investors that would then go take those bubble gum vending machines and put them in restaurants, bars, etc. You've seen these bubble gum machines, right? These are business opportunities. And unfortunately, this guy wanted to prove to prospective investors that his bubblegum machines were virtually shatterproof. So about every 7 or 8 minutes, we timed it, he would take a baseball bat and he would hit the snot out of his little bubblegum machine. See, guys, it's just virtually shatterproof. Well, we would have maybe 5 or 6 people standing in front of our booth listening to our story, but every time we would lose all of them to the baseball bat and the bubblegum machine. And I can tell you lots of other crazy stories of what it took to get those first 50 people to believe that these two dummies could actually help them do what we did and give us $15,000 to $20,000 for the privilege of doing it. But slowly, over time, we got to about 50, 60, 70 franchises. And in 1993, it seemed to me that my partnership with Craig wasn't working anymore. For those of you that want to start your own business, listen. Please. My best friend from college, my roommate in my apartment that I started the business with, the buddy of mine that I had more fun with in those first 7 or 8 years starting Proforma wasn't working anymore. And I felt to myself that I was doing 80% of the work, but I was only a 50% partner. And in 1993, I went to Craig. I said, Craig, it ain't working anymore. That's a tough lesson. It was tough on him and it was tough on me. And I offered for him to either buy me out or I'd buy him out. But either way, I was not going to make him rich through my own efforts. Probably one of the reasons why partnerships tend to fail. Because somebody feels that the relationship's no longer mutually, equally beneficial. Think long and hard, my friends, when you think about starting a business, about doing it with your best friend. To this day, Craig Allen, love him to death, love my memories. To this day, he's never spoken with me again. And I don't think he will to the day he dies. Well, what ended up happening was he agreed that I would buy him out. And he went on and he was allowed to take some of his customers and just have his own little distributorship because that was really all he wanted out of life. That little distributorship ended up going bankrupt. Then he went to work for somebody else, and I'm not sure what's come of him today, but today Proforma sits on a beautiful, near 10-acre campus in Independence, Ohio, 30,000 square foot building. We're on the cover of magazines in our industry. Not Time, you won't read about us, but in our industry, we're pretty well known. I think it's got to be very, very hard on him to see what's become of the company he helped start. But those things happen. Those things happen in business. And so somewhere along the way, we switched our business model from distribution to franchising. Somewhere along the way, I bought out my partner, and I didn't have all the money to do it, so I had to start making him payments out of the ongoing proceeds from the company. And somewhere along the way, banking seemed to change into something that we got a new banker every month, and I lost complete relationships with who our banker was. And in 1994, we were approached by our bank by a new group of people called the Workout Department. Have any of you heard of that Workout Department? Yeah. I didn't either when I was in college. The Workout Department is not these nice people. It's not. The Workout Department is somebody they don't tell you about, you can't know about, it's top secret. It's the people that come visit your company and say, we want our money back. We used to be your friendly banker, but now we want our money back. And if we don't get it back, we might put you out of business. Now, by 1994, I had become like George and Dick. I had a house, and I had a family, and I had school payments. And the Workout Department was telling me they were going to put me out of business. And in fact, if they decided to throw me into Chapter 11, they'd put a Doberman pincher in my building, to make sure I didn't come in unauthorized. That's the Workout Department. Well, we found a new bank, because I'm still here telling you the story. We found a new bank, thank God. And since I don't learn my lesson right the first time, a few years later, I got a phone call on a Sunday from the partner in charge of the small business group that I used to work for at Deloitte & Touche, Alan Adams. He was the partner in charge of not only small business, but our audit because we were friends. He says, Greg, we need to see you. Okay, I was at the pool with my kids. I'll come in. He says it's important. And he told me, well, we had been using, remember, I'm not an accountant by now. I'm just all sales and marketing. We had an accountant, and it ends up he wasn't very good. Ends up he was using some kind of estimates that the auditors bought off on for years, but they finally decided they needed to tie to the detail, and the detail wasn't there. And Alan Adams was there to tell me that we were going to have to write off $1 million, which we only had about $500,000 in net worth. And so that technically made us bankrupt, right? When you have more liabilities than you have assets, you're technically bankrupt. And so we called by that time, our lawyer, thankfully, was the partner in charge of his pretty nice law firm in Cleveland, Ohio, and Alan Adams. And I called up my banker that took us away from the other workout group, and And I said, I need to see you. He said, come on in. And I came in, but it wasn't just me. It was our CFO. It was the partner in charge of our law firm and the partner in charge of our audit. And I'll never forget, he looked at me and he said, oh, Greg, this isn't going to be a good meeting, is it? And it wasn't a good meeting. We went to work out again, just because it's that much fun. Well, fortunately, we're able to work our way out of workout and continue to grow the organization. Somewhere along the way, I sold that distributorship I had because franchising, we started to get to several hundred franchises, and franchising was actually becoming a means of income for us. And really, in the world of franchising, you shouldn't compete with your own franchise owners. If you studied franchising, you'd see one of the common complaints, one of the common lawsuits franchisees have against their franchisors is for something called cannibalization. And cannibalization is when you buy a franchise and you're the only Jiffy Lube in town. And you work hard to be the only Jiffy Lube, and you advertise, and you support the local high school team, and you do all this work to grow the brand of Jiffy Lube in your hometown, and they're so successful in your hometown, they decide to open up another Jiffy Lube. How upset would you be if you thought you owned all of your town, and now here comes another person in town to be another franchise? So number one, sometimes franchisees even get upset about other franchisees being put into their market because of cannibalization. But worse, to be paying fees to a franchisor that's also competing with you is difficult. So somewhere along the way, we sold our distributorship and became a full-time franchise. And then came the internet. And it scared me to death. Remember, I don't own any manufacturing equipment. I still don't. I hate the fact that we have to have a copier. I hate it, okay? Because all we do is sell. In fact, we have such a simple business. I'll tell you our whole strategic plan. $350 million company, 650 offices in North America. Here's our whole strategic plan. Recruit great franchise owners and help our franchise owners build great businesses. That's it. It's a simple business model. We just recruit great franchise owners and help our franchise owners build great businesses. And along comes the internet. And people were talking about another funny word, disintermediation. Do you remember that picture? Manufacturers, distributors, customers, and the threat of disintermediation and the promise of the internet it was going to get rid of the middleman. That's a frightening thing for a person that's a middleman. All right? So it's a frightening thought. And so we started another company called InnoQuest.com to face this threat right on. 1999, 2000. The internet did change our world. There's no doubt. All of you would say the internet has changed your world, right? Has the internet changed your world? Yes? The internet changed my world. Absolutely. Ask a travel agent. Ask a travel agent if you can find one, if the internet's changed their world. When you go to book airfares to fly home, do you call a travel agent? Yes or no? No! You go to the internet. Travel agents were disintermediated by the internet. It took me $6 million, me and some partners in our company, $6 million to get my MBA in internet technology and to learn the good news is that our industry will not be disintermediated by the internet. I thank God. Because what we sell is custom printed. We sell custom printed printing, like business forms, printing, brochures, envelopes, and printed promotional products, pens, pencils, balloons, all kinds of 600,000 crazy things with a logo on it. And because there's some magic to how ink gets on paper or how ink gets on balloons and pens, we will not be disintermediated. There's small players that do a couple $100,000, maybe even a couple $1 million a year, but they'll never do a big piece, I don't believe, of our business without at least a face-to-face representative in the field. So that was in 1999, 2000, 2001. That was at least a $6 million hit. And so I'm a pretty great marketer. I'm a pretty great sales guy. I'm a pretty bad accountant, right? You'd all agree with that. I'm pretty horrible at finance. And so I figured I need some financial help. I need to get my house together. And fortunately, somewhere along the way, 2001, I married a genius in finance. At right time, I mean, we were poised to do a lot of great things. We were poised to have critical mass and do big things in our industry, but we were a critical mess. And right then and right there, thank God, I met my wife and my co-CEO, Vera Muzzillo. Vera.
Hello, Notre Dame. I am so thrilled to be here. I just can't tell all of you what a thrill this is for me, so thank you. Greg talked a lot about preparation, perspiration, inspiration. And today, I'd like to share with you a little about how those components have affected my life. First, let's talk about preparation. I always dreamed of going to Notre Dame. How many of you dreamed of going to Notre Dame? To me, there wasn't any other choice. Greatest school in the nation. It had it all. And I worked hard all through high school. Did well on my SAT, took the right classes, had a great GPA. I applied to Notre Dame. I was deferred. And I remember thinking that this was just the beginning for me, because I was going to find a way to get into this university, and I was going to excel. I wasn't going to give up. And so over the course of that year, I kept writing every letter I could think of to the university to convince them to please let me in. And ultimately, in the springtime, I got my letter that yes, I was accepted. And when I came to Notre Dame, I had a moment in time, because my freshman year, I didn't know what I wanted to do. In fact, I thought I wanted to be a lawyer. But my roommate, she actually was going to be an accounting major. And she convinced me to come to the business school's information night and take a look at business. And I did that, but I still wasn't sure what I wanted to do. So I took all of those introductory classes, and I had a moment in time. How many of you are finance majors? Raise your hand. Well, I went to a class taught by Dr. Halloran. How many of you know Dr. Halloran? Dr. Halloran, stand up, please. And Dr. Halloran gave me that moment in time. He said, if you took $1 and you doubled it, and you doubled it, and you doubled it, and he showed me the math of how you could get to $1 million. And I thought, any major that can teach me that is the major for me. So that's how I became a finance major. He inspired me. And I went through Notre Dame, and I had the wonderful opportunity to work with Dr. Halloran. And as I worked with him, I learned more and more about the world of finance. And he really gave me some great advice about going into the banking world. And out of college, I went to work for a bank called Manufacturers Bank. It's headquartered in Detroit, Michigan. And during my time at Manufacturers Bank, I learned all about how to analyze companies. So I had the preparation from my finance background at Notre Dame, and I had the preparation of the commercial and investment banking world. And I had the opportunity to work with the Fortune 500s and the middle market companies. And that was a great experience. But then I had another moment in time. I met my husband. And over the course of those 13 years in the banking world, I did commercial banking, I did investment banking, and I did business consulting. And all of those things, I believe, led me to the road that I ended on, where I'm on today. And those things led me to a company called Proforma. And during my time with Greg, he asked me to please take a look at Proforma. And I said, that's fine, I'll take a look at it as long as I never have to work there. That's my only requirement. Because I don't know if you and I should work together. That might not be a very good recipe for a marriage. Well, I went in, I looked at Proforma, and I thought, I like this place. And I really like the people who work there. And about 2-3 months in the marriage, the bank came to Proforma, and I still was kind of watching it, learning about it, your loan. And they told me that I had to sign a multi-million-dollar guarantee. And that the only way they would keep Proforma going was if someone made a $500,000 capital injection, and if I signed a multi-million-dollar guarantee along with Greg's partner. I was newly married. I thought, well, this is going to be the way to go. And you know why it was the way to go? It was the way to go because I was prepared. All of these classes you take today, it all seems so theoretical, doesn't it? It's like you learn ratio analysis, you learn statement of sources and uses of funds, you learn about cash flow, you learn accounting, where the debits go, where the credits go, and you think, I'll do this case study. I know Dr. Howland's class just did Oracle. And you do those case studies, but they're very theoretical. But I'm telling you, when you get into the real business world, if you want to do it right, you need to understand those things. Because cash is everything. Understanding accounting is everything. Understanding finance and ratios. You can take those things that you learn and you can apply them in any business, any industry to be more successful. And that's what I did. I was inspired. These owners come to us with their dreams. They dream of owning their own business. They dream of being successful. They dream of making a better life for them and their families. That's why people become business owners. And I believe in those dreams. And so we rolled up our sleeves. I signed that guarantee. I put the money in the company. And I studied every ratio we had, every cash flow that we had, every opportunity that we had to do better. And we started to do better. And every year that went by, we got better. And there was one more thing we did. And I know that this is really important to Dean Wu. And I know that this is something they teach you here at Notre Dame. But I'm going to tell you, it's right. And it's all about ethics in business. And what do I mean by that? We had franchise owners. They weren't ethical people. Now, maybe they sold a lot, and maybe we collected a fee from them. But you know what? They didn't do the right things. They lied to their customers. They didn't pay their vendors. They were a mark on our system, and I kicked them all out. Every one of them. I said, our reputation is everything. Your name, your reputation is all you have ultimately. That's it. They weren't allowed there anymore. And I probably kicked out about $100 million in sales over the years. But guess what? For every dollar we let go of, we got 10. Because people want to believe. They want to be part of something that's good. Yes, it's great to make money. It's great to give back, but do it the right way. We don't do business with customers who are in certain industries. I don't believe in that. If you're in the pornographic industry, you're not going to be our customer. If you're in an industry that is outside of our realm, you are not going to be our customer. If you're a franchise owner that's going to cheat or lie, you're not going to be part of us. So between cleaning up our system, working hard, using all of those things I learned at Notre Dame that you're learning now, and then the final thing that's preparing you is you are surrounded by the best. You look around this room and the students that are here and the faculty that's here at Notre Dame, there's nothing better. The Mendoza College of Business, I looked it up online, U.S. News and World Report. They surveyed students who had been through the Mendoza College of Business, and they asked them, rank the faculty, rank the administration, rank what you learned. A+, A+, A+. You're the best, and you're learning from the best, so take advantage of it. Now, after perspiration, I'm going to talk about who are we today. Today, we are a $350 million franchise organization. We have 650 franchise owners throughout North America. We are one of the top 100 ranked franchises by Entrepreneur Magazine. We're the #1 print distributor in North America, and we're the #2 promotional products distributor in North America, and we're not done. In this economy, the average company in our industry is reporting a 5 to 10% downturn in sales. At Proforma, over this year, we're up almost 8%. We will continue to dream big, and we will continue to grow bigger. And to tell you more about that is my husband, Greg. Thank you.
Well, where are we going, and how are we going to get you all out of here pretty quick? It's almost lunchtime. I'm excited about our future. We have a huge future in a huge industry. Tell you again about my business. $200 billion a year businesses spend on printing and promotional products. And I'm going to tell you something more serendipity about getting into this business. There is no business that really cares how much they spend on this stuff. Oh, they care a little bit, but usually it's immaterial to the overall operations of their organization. Only American Greetings, maybe, and Hallmark cards care about how much they spend on printing. We don't get beat up that much. Our franchise owners don't get beat up that much in the field. I thank God. And the reorder factor is hugely high. You need to invoice your customers. You need more brochures. You need more direct mail. And companies want to continue to promote themselves, to continue to grow. You see our products everywhere. Sometimes you just don't relate it to our industry. But in our industry, the participants are what makes it most exciting. 20,000 small promotional products distributors, not one of them more than $1 billion a year. Only a few of them more than a few $100 million a year. 15,000 printing distributors, none of them more than $1 billion a year. 40,000 print shops struggling to figure out how they're going to survive in a digital economy, in a digital print world where the investment starts to become everything and they can't afford it. And all of those people with 500,000 sales reps that we offer an opportunity to own their own business and make more money than working for somebody else and help their dreams come true. So we make it easier for those sales reps to own their own business than it is to almost work for somebody else. We have a great thing going for us. We're in the dreams business. I'm no longer in the printing and promotional products business myself. I'm in the dreams business. I love what I do. I know you never heard about Proforma until I showed up here. And you may never, no matter how big we become, because we're just a business-to-business organization. But I love what I do. I love helping people's dreams come true. Last month, we helped one of our franchise owners sell a 2-year, $3 million a year contract. He'll make $1 million a year off that contract. I love what we do. I love what we do. We have people that come up to us at our annual convention and give us a big old hug. And they say, thank you. You changed my life. Because if it wasn't for Proforma, we wouldn't be doing what we're doing. I love what I do. I love what I do, and I love our opportunity. You guys are smart enough in math to figure this out. We do $350 million a year and the industry's $200 billion. So how much is $350 million divided by $200 billion? Nothing. It's nothing. We have not any measurable share of our market. We don't have significant share of the market that we're in. You know, GE won't get into any business unless they know they can have 30% share of market. 30% share of market. I'm not even brave enough to dream about 30% share of market, but I have big dreams about Proforma. I have big dreams about where we're going. I love helping people's dreams come true. I love the opportunity to talk to you because I believe each of you and all of you could do special things in your life with the right amount of preparation, perspiration, but most importantly, inspiration. Inspiration is everything. Inspiration, one day in your life can absolutely change who you will be forever. I believe God has a plan for each of you in this room, and it's a big plan. And He's not going to keep telling you over and over again what it is. He's going to whisper in your ear one day what it is, and you better be paying attention. I'm going to tell you one more story about a guy that eventually became a partner of mine in the business, who was your age as his story begins. In fact, he was slightly younger than you. He was graduating high school. He was dirt poor. He lived in New York City. His family had no money, and they had one friend that he thought had money because he owned a house. Uncle Pete. Uncle Pete, he called him. Wasn't really his family uncle. He was just a friend. And he didn't know how he would ever pay to go to college. Maybe some of you can relate to that. How will I ever pay to go to college? I don't know. And so he went to Uncle Pete, and he said, Uncle Pete, who was a doctor of nuclear physics. He says, you're a doctor, and I want to be a doctor just like you. What a powerful line, right? You're a doctor, and I want to be a doctor just like you. But I don't know how I can afford to go to college. Uncle Pete, what do you think? Now, you know what he was hunting for, right? You know what he was hunting for. And Uncle Pete said, you know, Fred, I got an idea about how maybe you could do this. I think you should start a little business. Start a little business, and you can work when you don't have classes, and make a little bit of money, and you can pay for college. And Fred said, well, what would I do? Wasn't the answer he was looking for, right? You can start a business. He just wants the money. He said, well, what would I do? And Uncle Pete said to him, well, how about a sandwich shop? It's not hard to make a sandwich, right? And it's not hard at all to make a sandwich. And you can make sandwiches when you're not in classes, and you can get your buddies to make sandwiches when you got to go to class, and they can help you out. Because how hard could it be to learn how to make sandwiches? So Fred said, but I don't have any money. And Pete said, no, I got some money. Put in $1,000. And Fred said, but I'm trying to pay to go to college. How will I ever pay you back? And Uncle Pete might have said the smartest words ever uttered in the world of business. He said, oh, Fred, you'll never have to pay me back. We'll just be partners. And they started a little company called Doctors Associates. Because remember, Fred wanted to be a doctor, and Pete's a doctor. And they started this little company called Doctors Associates. And they put up their first little sandwich shop called Pete's Submarines. Remember I told you the secret to success is having a horrible first year? Well, they had a horrible first year. And Fred went to Pete and said, we're not doing very well. What should we do? And Pete said, well, maybe we should open up another store so people think we're successful. And that's what they did. They opened up another store. And it worked. And people thought they were successful. And they started buying some sandwiches. And so they came up with this big old goal to have 32 stores in 10 years. And 8 years later, they only had 20-some stores. And so Fred and Pete talked, and they said, maybe we should start franchising. Maybe that would be a faster way for us to grow. And so Fred said, well, I'll go check that out. So he went to this International Franchise Association. It's there's an association for everything. It's where all the franchise companies hang out. Century 21, Burger King, all those companies I just named. And he went to their annual convention, and the speaker that year at the big old general session was Ray Kroc. Remember him? I just talked about him. McDonald's. And he sat in the audience like you're sitting there today, and he listened to Ray Kroc tell the McDonald's story. And afterwards, he got in line because he wanted to meet Ray Kroc. And he stood in line, he waited. And he talked to Ray Kroc. And then he left, and he went to go to the elevator to go to his hotel room. And he was with his wife, Liz. If you've got to know Liz, you'd love Liz. She's just a very simple lady. Not simple-minded, simple. Wonderful gardener and mom. Sweet lady. And he said, honey, I got a new goal. And she's heard this stuff from him before. And so she said, well, honey, what's your new goal? And he said, well, I met Ray Kroc. And I talked to Ray Kroc. And Ray Kroc's no smarter than me. So my new goal is to be bigger than McDonald's. Okay. Okay. Well, somewhere along the way, Pete and Fred worked hard. Somewhere along the way, Pete and Fred changed the name of their business. Somewhere along the way, Doctors Associates changed their name to Subway. Somewhere along the way, they have more stores in North America today than McDonald's. Somewhere along the way, Pete and Fred, on the basis of a partnership agreement that would scare anybody studying Law 1, are both ranked as one of the top couple hundred richest people in not only America, but in the world. In the world. They worked hard. They were well prepared. But there was one day in their life, one day in Fred DeLuca's life that changed him forever. And I believe for each of you and all of you, you may someday have that day. That's my hope for you. It's my wish for you, as I encourage you all to. Dream big. Thank you very much. Thank you for listening.
Okay, we'd like to open the floor now for anyone who'd like to ask a question. Got 2 microphones here at each side. No, they're spellbound. Mm-hmm. Okay, I'll start out with the initial question. And you said that you are all over North America. Do you have any goals? Are you thinking big about international? Is there anything you'd like to share with us on that topic?
There are opportunities internationally in our industry. Sorry. There are other places where, number one, franchising as a method of distribution exists, and printing and promotional products is sold through distributor channels. But we've made the conscious decision today that for Proforma, in this $200 billion industry where we only do $350 million, that there's so much low-hanging fruit for us to get that we don't want to divide up our time to try to figure out how to do this in Australia or England. Now, we're open, and every now and then we get inquiries because of the internet and because of our aggressive franchise marketing from people in other nations. And we tell them, if they're interested in becoming, there's another kind of franchising called master franchising, and that's where people buy a big old license to own a geography, sometimes a whole country, and expand a franchise system internationally. So we tell people that, and they usually would invest maybe $500,000, million, or several millions of dollars. We tell people, if you'd like that, we might sell you a master franchise for Australia, but we're not going to focus on it ourselves, given the low-hanging fruit here in North America.
Other questions out there? We'll put you on the spot, Dr. Howard. We must have questions for your past students.
I want to ask Vera exactly what the details on that story were. I'm still working on my first 1 million.
Oh, yes. Do you remember the rule of 72 that you taught us? That you take 72 and divide it by the interest rate, and that's how many years it takes for your money to double? That was the first day of class you taught us that. And then you also did the Land Shark. I know you don't do that anymore, Dr. Halloran, but I miss that. The Saturday Night Live Land Shark. You guys probably have never heard that, but that's a good one too.
Now, there is one more story I want you to tell. You mentioned it when we were talking before this presentation. Why don't you talk about your school in Birmingham that you're working with in the Student Business Club? This is where CEOs like this give back to the community, which I think is a huge part of any organization. Like you said, you have to have it to give it away, and you're doing that now. But if you talk about that, that's a really great story.
We're starting a business club currently at 2 of the local high schools. Anybody here go to Brother Rice or Marion? Anyway, it's a sister and brother high school, and they never had a business club before, and we're in the process of starting one with them. And it was really interesting because I had said to Greg, if we have 25 people who show up, that will be great because this is a new club. And over 400 people came the first night. Because I think the future is really in entrepreneurialism, particularly in this country. I think that is the future of America.
Hi, thank you for coming to Notre Dame. Could you explain a little bit about the dynamic of having 2 CEOs in the same company, the dynamics between you and the dynamics of how your employees see you? Who is the leader? Who to record to in a different situation?
What's your name?
Gabriel.
Gabriel?
Yeah.
Hey, Gabriel, that's a very good question that I could answer briefly. That's been a work in process because, husband and wife is hard enough. Together we have 10 children, his, hers, and ours. So that's pretty busy life. And I think that the key is, number one, trust, of course, and friendship, but then additionally division of duties. And so if you can't tell, I'm sales and marketing, and I'm not even trusted with any accounting or finance or operations. And I don't even have a budget. So if I want to spend any money in our marketing of new franchise owners, I got to go find out what my budget is. So maybe you'd have something to add to it.
Well, and I think it's just a natural in terms of the way that many companies are divided. You'll find companies that typically have over 10 to 20 employees. There are certainly divisions of responsibilities within those companies. So I oversee operations, finance, technology. He oversees sales, marketing, business development. And it's somewhat natural that the people within those components of the company would come to us. And then together, we work on the business all the time. We love it. It's a very fun business because it's very family-oriented. There's a lot of families that are involved in it, and there's small companies. So it works out really well for us because we love what we do. And I did forget to tell y'all, but when I joined Proforma, 7 of the top 10 companies in the industry went out of business. Because it wasn't just Proforma that did not understand how to manage itself from a financial standpoint, but the industry itself was not very sophisticated. And we are actually now the strongest financial player in our industry segment by far.
Thanks.
What are some of the specific terms that franchisees can start up, and what are the specifics of the agreements that you have with them?
What's your name?
George.
Hey, George. We'd love to sell you a franchise, by the way. I'm just kidding. I'm such a jerk. They let me come out and play. We have 2 kinds of franchises. Franchises that come to us from outside of the industry, and we have to teach them all of it. That's the traditional. And with people that come to us from inside of the industry, existing distributors looking to grow their business to the next level, or existing salespeople with a book of business that are ready to own their own business and quit working for the boss. So we have, simply stated, people outside of the industry, we charge $20,000 to. People inside of the industry bringing a book of business, we don't charge any upfront money because usually people that are in that profile are two paychecks away from bankruptcy anyhow. You know, sales types drive a fancy car, live in a fancy house, and don't have a lot of cash, typically. But then the terms after that are about the same. Our fees range from 6 to 8%, plus a contribution to the sales and marketing fund. But we have a very simple agreement because we're not fast food. All of our franchise owners don't have to look the same. They don't all have to serve the Asiago cheese bread if we roll out Asiago cheese bread. So we're a pretty loose-knit organization compared to some of the tight controls franchisors have in some systems. Yes? Good.
Do we have any more questions? Okay, well, I want to thank you, and we have a couple of
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Very good.
Thank you.